these are things that I've heard, and hopefully like someone can benefit from hearing this. But my first question is, who would benefit from therapy?
Okay, so when I first read this question, I kind of made like a list of like four, maybe like top things to consider. And then I realized, wait, we also want to factor in children. So like children would be a kind of a different kind of dynamic, because most of the time they're in therapy because their parents or a guardian or loved one feels that they need to be in therapy. So that's not necessarily their choice.
Right.
So I think if we're talking about a child, then obviously there needs to be a certain willingness for them to engage.
Right.
And again, a therapist who works with children will know that they'll use their techniques, play, right, games, just talking. It'll be a little bit different. Now, if we're talking about, let's say, a young adult, maybe an older teen or an adult who like willingly is thinking about going to therapy, I would say these are the four things. One, anyone who has a problem or a struggle that they want to address. And I know that some people might be saying, well, don't we all have problems? Yes, right. we all do have problems. That is for sure. No one is exempt from that. But generally, we say as a rule of thumb, if it is a struggle or a problem that is affecting maybe 2 or 3 areas in your life, then it's something you might want to look at. So I would even say if it's affecting one part of your life, I think that's even enough to have you think about going to therapy. But let's say, for example, you're struggling with sleep and not being able to sleep at night. You're unable to perform as a parent because you're so exhausted. You can't get to work on time. So it's affecting maybe your personal life, your relationships, your work life, family, just any like area of your life is being negatively affected by this problem, I would say would be someone who might benefit from therapy. Number 2, there should be, even if there's just a little bit of motivation to change, because again, a therapist can work with even a little bit. Like let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, your motivation to change is like a 2 or 3. We can work with that, right? Because as we continue to talk, maybe that motivation will grow. But if you're like at a 0, you really like, it's a problem, but you ain't trying to like deal with it right now. Or maybe you've had some trauma in your past that you're just not ready to talk about. 0 motivation, maybe you won't benefit too much, because there is going to be a push for you to want to change and want to try different techniques or look at things a different way. Number 3, I would say openness. There does need to be a level of openness, right? You are talking to another person, a professional in this case, about very personal things, and that can be very uncomfortable for most people. Especially the first few visits might be really uncomfortable. So there does need to be a level of openness to try something new and maybe even different that you haven't tried before. And then number 4, I would say definitely the therapist needs to be a good fit for you. And I know we're gonna talk a little bit more about that, but the therapist that you see can also really impact whether or not you benefit from the therapy itself. So I would say those 4 things. You have a problem or a challenge that's affecting different areas in your life. You do have some motivation to change whatever situation you're going through, some openness, and find a therapist that's a good fit for you.
Excuse my scatterbrain, but that is really hard for some people, because a lot of people are very private. And they're like, if I wanted to talk about it up until this point, I would have. Like, I don't want to talk to no one. For me, it's actually easier to talk to a complete stranger for some reason. Like, I'm just like, like for some reason it doesn't bother me. Sometimes I guess I feel, since like I'll never see you outside of here,
right?
type thing. Like, I guess that makes it easier. And even now to this day, like I still sometimes, I feel like when me and my therapist chat, it's kind of like talking to someone that you've known for years. Like you eventually get to that place and you're just like, oh, remember when I told you about this? So it's like you kind of get to that point eventually, like when you find the right therapist.